Now, please welcome our first guest, Dr. John Grewar from JData, who is here to discuss compartmentalization in the red meat industry.
Hi, John. Welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Yeah, well, thanks.
John, please tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where do you come from, where do you work, how many children, blood type, all of that.
Dear well, I'm a veterinarian by trade, but I've got a special interest in epidemiology, which is the study of sort of diseases within animal populations. And this project that we've done together was effectively to scope whether compartmentalization is feasible within the red meat industry, and quite specifically the work that I did was more towards the feedlot environment within the red meat industry.
Now, I've read the document, obviously the scoping document, but please tell us a little bit more. What was the finding? What do we say about compartments specifically in the red meat industry and the feedlot industry per se?
I think the bottom line is compartments definitely are feasible, but definitely within your industry, there are definitely some challenges that need to get addressed. And I think it was a very good exercise to go through. Industry shouldn't go into make these type of decisions without sort of really thinking it through properly. And hopefully we've started that process together. The major things that I found was that compartmentalization is really driven by international guidelines, and in this case it's the OIE, which is the World Organization for Animal Health. They've given guidelines on compartmentalization, and that's something that the country really needs to adhere to if they want to make compartmentalization work. So I looked at those guidelines quite specifically, and then looked at some of the legal aspects of compartmentalization within South Africa, and then also looked at some of the examples of compartmentalization in other industries and within some of the legal frameworks that Dr. Major from the Department of Agriculture have put together. What I found out is that the major things that need to get dealt with within your environment is traceability of animals. Compartments are effectively creation of a subpopulation of animals that have got a different health status to animals around them. And in order to do that, you have to know where animals come from. So traceability forms a big part of the compartment environment. Surveillance is the other thing that, while it's very close to my heart in terms of the work that I do, in terms of compartmentalization, is also very, very important, because you can't, as you can well imagine, you can't define two different levels of disease unless you're looking for the disease within the compartment. So that's very, very important.
Can I just maybe interject there? So I think what I'm hearing firstly is it needs to be, it's symbiotic. There's a relationship between, because you mentioned specifically traceability and surveillance. Now, these are two separate objectives. One is driven by industry and one is driven by government per se. Yeah. What I hear is that we've got to work together. It's a hand-in-hand situation.
I mean, that was one of the major findings in my executive summary that I did for you. The process cannot work unless you've got a very, very strong relationship with government as an industry. And luckily, the OIE have also put guidelines in terms of that relationship, and that's called PPP, Public-Private Partnerships. And that's something that is becoming a worldwide phenomenon just because of the environment that we are in economically. Governments have come to the understanding that public-private partnerships are the only way for us to progress as industry and as government. Governments don't have the money or the capacity necessarily to undertake these big projects that the industry have got a very big need to have undertaken. So they have to work hand in hand.
Well, compartments, is it a pie in the sky, or is it actually doable in South Africa? And secondly, have it been done in South Africa? Have it been done in Africa, for that matter?
So it's definitely been done in South Africa. Currently within the pig industry and in the poultry industry, there are compartment models which are getting used. So on a day-to-day basis, but not without their challenges. For instance, in the ostrich industry, compartmentalization is legislated within their agreement with the European Union, but the rules regarding the compartmentalization make it almost impossible to actually adhere to. But certainly the pig industry have made very good use of it in South Africa. Is it possible for the red meat industry? It is possible. There are some challenges when it comes to traceability, when it comes to sourcing animals. You've got a much more dynamic industry than industry like a poultry or a pig industry, a lot more players that are involved. So certainly the type of analysis that needs to take place in terms of the social component of of how people adhere to regulations, how people adhere to industry-driven initiatives is something that really you need to have a very, very close look at, because those are the things that are going to make or break compartments in your industry.
Now, John, after hearing everything you said, obviously the question would be, what is step one? Where do we start with this?
Yeah, so Dewald, I mean, I think the important thing is to start small. I come from a systems background, and invariably the knee-jerk reaction is to sort of make this big system and make a big shell and then work into that. But in your case, that's not going to work because it's quite a dynamic environment and there are quite a lot of variables that are unknown. So I would really start with some of your big players within the industry, approach them, discuss with them how compartments work and what needs to get done in order for it to work. And then actually literally go and do a pilot study with them for traceability, for disease surveillance, what resources are available to you from a veterinary perspective, what resources are available from the government in those areas, because obviously with the public-private partnership, the government are very, very involved. So I think once you've done that with some of your big players, then you can see, is it feasible, has it worked with them, and then you work towards the rest of your industry, and I think that's the approach to take.
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to jump in over there quickly. It doesn't sound like it's an easy kind of a step to do. It sounds like it's more educational and it takes a long time, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and that's the thing sometimes we forget as vets, as regulators, is that the psychology behind approaching a really big project like this is really something you can't avoid. So you really, on your team, you need to include some social scientists, how people react to change, how are they going to be open to it? Do they see the benefit in it? If you're trying to put a system in place that doesn't have benefit, then you're wasting time. Even there must be perceived benefit for your stakeholders across the board.
I think we're going to discuss to Dr. Sifiso and Tobela later, just to look at what can the economy gain and what can the farmers gain and what can our agricultural economy with regards to red meat gain from such a system.
Wonderful.
And that was Dr. John Grewar, Director at J Data. Thank you, John.
No worries. Thank you very much for your time.